Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad that you guys are here. My name is Laura, and you're here to hear from me. So I'm going to actually get started. This is like the moment of truth where I'm going to share my screen, my slide deck. Hopefully I don't break the internet, all that jazz. Cool. Just give me in the chat real quick, a quick like, yes, I can see your slides, or no, and that means you can't. Just want to make sure like we are all seeing what we should be seeing, which is the first, it's a screenshot of I use cold emails to 14x my freelance copywriting. I'm not getting any responses, so that's cool. I'm assuming we're all good to go. So welcome. Let me know in the chat real quick while we're kind of coming in and everything, getting settled, right? Let me know in the chat, yes or no. Have you ever written a cold email? Yes, you have. No, you haven't. I kind of want to get like a temperature of the room, if that makes sense, to see where you're at with cold emails, if you've ever tried them, if you haven't tried them. I will probably be asking for a little bit of engagement from you guys here in this webinar today. I do like to know that you're out there, you're watching and listening, and it's not just me talking to an external camera in my other screen and all that. No cold emails. Awesome. Thank you, B. The thing is, like, I have a confession, and you've been sold this fairy tale that writing a cold email is super easy. And I've been part of this myth. It's a semi-true story with all the bad parts scrubbed out, and the beautiful parts have this huge spotlight on them. And you probably know what those beautiful parts look like, where it's this idea of you sit down and bang out this amazing cold email. It takes you like 20 minutes because you're in the zone. The muse is flowing through you. Cold email is easy. You hit it, you send this email, you ship it, and then you might go for a walk. You might get some more coffee. You might tend to some other business, but you come back to your computer 20, 30, 60 minutes later, and you have an inbox full of replies and clients begging to work with you. And you've got more requests for proposals than you ever could have dreamed of. That's the myth. But what nobody talks about is the hard work that goes into writing that cold email before you hit send to make sure that it actually converts. It actually does what you want it to do. And today I'm not going to talk about the fairy tale because it's not helpful. I'm actually going to show you the hard work behind that fairy tale glitter. And it is hard work. And yes, it does get much easier when you use these 3 pillars that I'm about to show you. Nobody talks about these 3 pillars in a pitch because it's not all glittery and golden and happily ever after, and they ride off into the sunset and wham, bam, the whole problem's fixed. But these 3 pillars ensure that your cold email converts and does the goal that you're actually sending it to go out and do for you. So who am I to talk about cold emails? Well, my name is Laura Lopuch. I'm a client and partner acquisition expert. And I've been married to my husband, Trevor, for almost 19 years. We have 3 little boys. But let me take you back 10 years ago when I launched my business with only cold email. It was before we had kids. We just had 2 dogs. I launched my business with only cold email. I ended up getting a $20,000 client from 1 cold email. I grew my business 1,400% in 4 months. And I didn't have any ads, any network, any content marketing. In fact, my website was a blog that I was writing like book reviews on. So I didn't even have an accurate, updated website either. But cold sales emails grew my business 1,400% in about 4 months. And then I went on to teach my method to my clients and did that, both teaching for them and also doing the thing for them and writing their cold emails. One client got a 33% uplift in positive replies. Another client signed a $7,000 a month retainer client. He ended up bringing back $42,000 from one client because of our work together. And I typically get about 50% in positive reply rates. And hang on, I will show you inside of that actual cold sales email that usually gets me those 50% positive reply rates. And by the way, positive reply means a yes reply, not a no follow-up, or like stop emailing me. That would be like a negative reply, just to make that clear. So maybe you're wondering, like, why should I even cold pitch? Why should I send cold emails? Well, there's three big reasons. The first is the ability to handpick your clients. And in my opinion, this is the biggest reason, because you actually have the ability to take control of how you get clients, despite what most of the internet marketers tell you. You can work with who you want to work with, and you can work on the projects that you want to work with. In short, you can have control over your client generation instead of like crossing your fingers and hoping that your content speaks to the right person, and then they happen to DM you and their budget happens to line up and all of these things just kind of happen to fall into place. Actually, you can go out and you can actively pursue the clients and the projects that you want to work on. And because of that, I've been able to work with really cool folks like Joanna Weeb of Copy Hackers and Selena Sue, the creator of Impacting Millions. The second big reason why you should send cold emails is you can get your content in front of a big audience filled with people that you want to work with. This type of cold email is a content partnership pitch where you essentially borrow someone else's audience with their permission. And in fact, it's what I'm doing today in borrowing Devi's audience and to be able to talk with you guys. And this is actually my favorite kind of cold email. In 3 months, over the course of one summer, I did a lot of partnership pitching. And because of doing these content partnerships, I saw a 227% increase in revenue and a 39% increase in subscribers. And then the third reason is you can work less and have more fun doing it when you send cold emails. Over the last 10 years, cold pitches have brought in a consistent $35,000 at least in my business every year. Well, I've been on two maternity leaves with 2 different kids, and I work about 11 to 12 hours a week. So before we get into the framework, we do need to have the talk, which is why you got to be pitching at every stage of your business, whether you're pivoting to a new niche or maybe you're adding a new service. So here's the times that you need to send cold emails in your business. If you've been doing your business 0 to 2 years, you need to send cold emails to get new clients in the door. A little bit of that idea of like work with who you want to work with on the projects that you want to work with. To get lots of experience, to figure out who you like to work with and what projects you like to work on. And then if you've been in business for 2 to 4 years, you want to send a different type of cold email to get on podcasts. And this will bring in a steady stream of new clients and email subscribers. So you start growing your email list, which essentially serves as a wait list for you and your services. And then if you've been in business 4 or more years, you want to send cold emails to get more visibility opportunities and partnerships, which is essentially you going out and borrowing someone else's audience to attract new clients at scale in larger quantities back to you. And this is one of my favorite ways to use cold emails. All right, so we're going to get into the price list, the 3 price list pillars. When was the last time you went to Costco? For me, it was last week. And they have, if you go at the right times, usually on a Saturday or Sunday, they set up those little product stands where they give you out one sample, right? One little sample. I have 3 boys, so we tend to hit up all the different sample stands. If you've ever wondered why they only give you one sample at each stand, one product, there's a reason why. And it's because of Sheena Iyengar. She's the professor of business at Columbia University, and she decided to conduct an experiment one day. She went to a grocery store. She laid out this huge display of 24 jams for folks to sample. And then every couple hours, she switched it out to a smaller display of just 6 jams. She switched back and forth between the 2 displays. And at the end of her time at the grocery store, she measured how many people bought a jar of jam or converted from that big sample size of 24 jams or the smaller sample size of just 6. So out of that big display of 24 jams, just 3% of people who sampled ended up buying a jar of jam. But from that smaller display of just 6 jars of jam, 30% of the people, or about 1 in every 3 people who sampled, ended up buying a jar of jam. So What do jars of jam have to do with cold emails? It means that you have to be super, super clear in your cold email. And that means reducing the number of questions. Clarity comes from eliminating options. And so you really need to make sure that what you're saying in your email equals what you want it to say in your reader's mind. So above all else, you need to be clear, because any question will prevent your reader from saying yes. So if there's doubt or uncertainty, that prevents them from saying yes. For example, if I say marketing is probably going to mean something different to each one of you that's in the room with me today. It might mean hiring your first VA. It might mean sending your first email. It might mean hiring a director of marketing. If I say, let's grow your marketing, you don't know what I'm talking about because it's very vague. And each one of those options that marketing could mean is a question. It's an obstacle. And so another good example is scale, which is a big buzzword, right? I'm like, let's scale your business. You're like, I don't know what that means, Laura. Does that mean hiring a sales team? Does that mean hiring my first employee? Does that mean hiring my first VA? Does that mean just increasing the number of cold emails I send out a week so that I increase the number of clients I'm getting? See, each one of those is a different outcome. So above all, you have to be clear. You have to be clear in your cold email and avoid those vague kind of buzzwords that people tend to fall back on in their emails or just talking in general. So this is the fun part. Let's write an email together. So this email is based off of a real life cold sales email that I wrote for my business. It got a 50% positive response rate. And to protect privacy, I changed the names in this email to a familiar face, very familiar face, from the wonderful show Mad Men. So meet Don Draper if you haven't met him before. He's who we're cold emailing. And if you don't know him, he works at an advertising agency and he likes to win. So we're going to write him a cold email together. So it starts off, subject, profitable partnerships. Hi, Don. You've been on my radar for several years now, thanks to your cool work with marketing and your love of books, and because you're a former copywriter like myself. So first off, we're being super clear, even in the subject line, profitable partnerships. Try saying that 3 times fast. But we're also being really clear about kind of what we're talking about in the email, not like quick question, which could mean any sort of different thing from, hey, is your fridge running, to did you let your dog out, to, hey, I'd like to work with you. Are you available to talk? Those are all quick questions, but we're being clear even in our subject line. Okay. So you've been on my radar for several years. Again, really clear about where he's come up. And then I go on to explain why he's come up on my radar, because of these things, because of his marketing work, his love of books, and his past experience. Cool. Moving on. Also, we have a lot of mutual friends like Lane Price, Pete Campbell, and Peggy Olson. Again, being really clear about who these people are that we have in connection, not just, hey, Don, we know a lot of the same people. Awesome. That's not very clear, but this is. So, hi, great to finally meet you. See how clear it is? And in being clear, I'm also being specific. I'm name dropping specific people, and I'm referencing specific things that we have in common. All right, if you would like 2 cold email templates, I put those together for you. Just go to lauralopuch.co/Debbie. There's 2 cold email templates that are plug and play that use these 3 pillars. I love to use these even today because I don't like writing from a blank page. Figured you would also be able to benefit from them as well. I'm going to take a quick drink and then we're going to move on to another example. All right. So where does clarity come from in a pitch to a podcast? This is another type of cold email. There's actually 7 different types. And so this is another type of cold email and where you're essentially borrowing the podcast's audience to source new clients from. And it's a really cool win-win partnership. But use a cold email to get on there. And so what would you say? So we're going to talk about that in light of this first pillar, clarity. So here's the first bit of this email. I say, feature the Fizzle Show / Woodpecker article. And I say, hey, Corbett, thanks for having Brian Harris on the Fizzle Show recently, episode 360. What he shared about focusing on results got me redesigning my course for a heavier focus on coaching versus handing it over and hoping the students get big results. Huge aha, so big thanks for that. Look how clear I am about referencing the guest, referencing the episode number, referencing what he shared, the guest shared, and the actions that I took. All very clear, all very specific. Not, hey, Corbett, loved your recent episode. It was so insightful. And Corbett's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Was it last week's? Was it an older one? Who was the guest? What was insightful? Did you do anything different? Did you change action? And see, every single one of those questions is confusion in his mind. So it prevents him from moving forward. Back to the email. Also, the nuggets you dropped about cold emails, even though Brian wasn't really there to talk about them, were awesome. So awesome, in fact, that I quoted you in my recent guest post on Woodpecker's blog, where I broke down 2 of my cold emails, a bad and winning one. And then I included a screenshot, just as a little bit added benefit to help him really get clear on what I was talking about. Zoe and Stephen, I see your questions. We will definitely have time to get to Q&A at the end. So I'm going to kind of make sure we circle back to both of you. Cool. Moving on to the email, I say cold emails have been my business's biggest growth lever. When I started my business, I used only cold emails and grew 14x in about 4 months. Even got a 20K client with just 1 cold email. Since then, I've been on Mailshake and Crazy Egg, written a viral post for Joanna Weave's Copy Hackers, and been on countless podcasts like Predictable Revenue. See, again, being super clear about the impact cold emails I've had in my business and the results that I've gotten with them, and even more about like, I've done this for other people like you. Back to the email. One of your most popular episodes is the 80-20 Guide to Copywriting for Entrepreneurs. What if I came on to give your listeners a guide to cold emails for entrepreneurs? Again, being really clear about how it could benefit him and what it could look like if I came on to talk on his podcast. And then I said some things we can talk about, and then you interested. And so totally spoiler, I did get on the Fizzle Show because of this cold email and ended up talking to Corbett, and it was a fantastic experience. All right, so pillar number 2 is micro yeses. Don't tell the other pillars, but this one might be my most favorite because it is so much fun to do. So micro yeses are where you put in little yeses into each bit of your cold email. So you're essentially dropping little breadcrumbs through your email where your reader is saying yes and agreeing with your statements. So each line of your email has your reader nodding along with you, because you have to actually set the stage for them to say yes to your call to action at the end. And one of the most effective ways to do that is to get them in the habit of saying yes to you throughout the entire email. So by the time the call to action comes along, that thing that you really want them to say yes to at the end, they're already used to saying yes to you because they've been nodding along throughout the entire cold email. And so they typically end up saying yes to your call to action at the end. So if you say something that they're like, whoa, that doesn't make any sense, Laura, or they start shaking their head, you've stopped the whole thing. They've clicked over to Facebook, they're scrolling Instagram, they're refreshing LinkedIn, right? Checking their emails, they've gotten distracted. So this is a really effective way to keep their attention. The easiest way to show you what this looks like, so we're going to go back to that email we're writing Don Draper. So I'm going to show you what their micro yeses in this section look like. First off, profitable partnerships. Don's like, yeah, that sounds interesting. And that right there is a micro yes on his response. I say, you've been on my radar for several years now, thanks to your cool work with marketing. And he's like, yep, I do have cool work in marketing. That response is a micro yes. And I say, and your love of books. And he's like, yeah, I do like to read. And because you're a former copywriter like myself. And he's like, yeah, I am. Exactly. Those are all micro yeses. Okay. He's affirming what I'm saying. I say, also because we have lots of mutual friends like Lane, Pete, and Peggy. he's like, yeah, those are all people I know. Cool. Moving on. Because you're focused on growing Sterling Cooper and you're hiring salespeople, I thought I'd reach out. And he's like, yeah, we are growing and we are hiring. Okay, you got me. Keep going. And that's a micro yes from Dawn. I say, borrowing someone else's audience with a partnership is a smart, efficient way to get more clients. In fact, it's how Nathan Barry grew ConvertKit seemingly overnight. And Dawn's like, yeah, I would like a smart, efficient way to get more clients. Cool. Tell me more. That response is a micro yes. I say, but it's hard to find time to write effective pitches and execute the partnership successfully. Plus, the mental workload for pitching is exhausting. Maybe I can help. And he's like, yeah, it is exhausting. I could use help. I don't want to have more work to do. And that right there is a micro yes. In case you haven't, I did put together 2 cold email templates for you. I also included 2 examples of what the emails can look like. So you have kind of the template to work from and then an example of a real life cold email based off that template. So you can kind of see what the end version also looks like. I kind of think of it as like building a house. And so you can see, the blueprint of the house, but then you can also see like what the house could look like finished. So it can help you not get stuck that easily, if that makes sense. And those are at lauralopuch.co/Devi. Thanks, Paula, for putting that in the chat. All right, so what does a micro yes look like in a partnership pitch for a lead magnet swap? This is also another one of those 7 different types of cold emails, and I really like these ones. This is a real life cold email that I sent to Kaylee Moore. She's an e-commerce writer, and I say, hey, Kaylee, I love this story of the turtle. Words and stories are so powerful. Huge lesson from 2020. And in marketing, we often forget that someone's unique viewpoint affects the lens of that story. We'll be keeping the turtle and his trek in mind. So in this email, I'm actually replying to one of Kaylee's regular email newsletters. And I'm reflecting back to her the power of the story that she just shared in that email newsletter. And so, of course, she's going to say, yeah, I'm so glad you found that helpful. And that's what I was hoping you would find helpful in my sharing that story, which is a micro yes from Kaylee, because she wanted me to find the story helpful. So I'm reflecting back to her. I found the story helpful. And of course, she's like, yes, good. I'm glad that resonated. Awesome. And that response on Kaylee's part is a micro yes. Back to the email. Speaking of words, it seems like our audiences are similar. You writers, me copywriters. And she's like, yep, that's true. I do have a lot of writers. I say, lots of my folks need help on the writing side of things. The win for you is more email subs. Would you be interested in a lead magnet swap? And she's like, yeah, I would be. And that's exactly what she replied to me with. And we ended up doing a lead magnet swap. And I got, it's actually still in effect today because of how we set it up. So I usually get a handful of new email subscribers on autopilot every month or every couple of months from this lead magnet swap that I set up, 5-ish years ago. All right, so this is the final pillar, pillar number 3. And this is every email you send has to have one goal. One goal. You need to be super clear about what your email reader needs to do next after reading your email. The easiest way to do that is to end your email on a question. Don't put in lots of questions. Don't make the mistake I did at the beginning when I was sending cold emails and it took me like 3 months to get a response. Looking back, I see my mistake. And it's because I was asking lots of different questions in my email, like, how's the weather? What'd you do this weekend? In an attempt to create a connection. But that was the wrong approach because each one of those questions represents an open loop. It makes the reader want to reply to that question. So if I pepper them with questions, like it's an interrogation, they don't know which of the questions I want them to answer because I've given them 5 and they get lost. So they end up not replying at all. So use the power of a question judiciously and be really smart with it. Right? That Peter Parker quote, with great power comes great responsibility. So use one question, use it in your call to action, and that needs to point to your goal. So the cool thing is when you stick to one goal, you can stay focused. You know what to put in the email. You know the direction that you're driving your email reader towards. It's easier to be clear, that pillar number 1. It's easier to build your trail of micro yeses, that pillar number 2. And it's so much easier to optimize and test and then increase your conversion rates because you know what you're trying to accomplish. You know what your goal is, and then you can look at that email and say, did it accomplish this goal? Yes? No? No? Okay, well, let's go through the 3 pillars. Let's tighten it up. Let's optimize it. All right, so we're going to move back to this email that we're writing down. We've seen this part so far. Now we're moving into the last section of the email. And I say, hi, I'm Laura, a cold email and pitch expert. For the last 7 years, I've used partnerships as my number 1 marketing strategy. And I've partnered with cool folks like Joanna Weeb, Sujan Patel, and Rob Walling. I help online businesses get more clients with profitable partnerships, including how to find hot now prospects from your new partnership. You interested? And that's my goal with this email. I'm not trying to get done on a call. If he's interested, we'll get to that, right? All I'm interested in is, with this email, my one goal is find out if Dawn is interested. Would you like this thing, Dawn? Are you interested in doing this in your business? Right? And Sterling Cooper, would you like to figure out how to get more clients with these profitable partnerships? Yes or no? And then if he says no, then I know what actions to take. If he says yes, then I can start nudging him down a sales conversation. So what does one goal look like in a real life cold email? This is an email I got several years ago from a guy named Jordan. And his email is a really good example of the 3 pillars. And I'm going to tell you why in just a sec as we read through it, okay? He says, hey, Laura, just saw you referenced in the Predictable Revenue podcast, though I haven't had a chance to take a listen just yet. I flipped through a LinkedIn request to you as well. I'm writing you this with somewhat sleepy eyes and a half-awake brain as the day is just getting started for me in Sydney, Australia. I run my company virtually, just got back from Bali. Okay, the reason why I included this email is because it violates the first pillar, clarity. Remember when we were talking about clarity and how hard it is to be clear? When I got this email the first time, I didn't know what he was talking about. I had no idea. I didn't know why he was emailing me. I didn't really care that he runs his company virtually or that he just got back from a trip or why he was half awake emailing me or why he didn't listen to the podcast, why he was trying to connect with me. See, all of these questions prevented me from actually reading his email because my brain's like, what? Come on, does not compute. And it's that lack of clarity. I ended up skipping down to the 3rd paragraph after rereading the first couple. And that 3rd paragraph says, I'd love to grab a few minutes to learn more about your business and how you help SaaS companies. My company is solely focused on helping $1 to $2 million SaaS companies implement the sales process and methodology that will allow them to grow to 10 million. One of the critical components to this is outbound prospecting. So at the time when he cold emailed me, I was specializing in SaaS, bit of a SaaS and cold email, okay? This is the part of the email that I finally started tuning into because he tapped into pillar number 2, the micro yeses. This is the part that I was like, yes, okay, I do help SaaS companies. Yes, you're right. SaaS companies at this level really need help in getting new clients so that they can grow to that 10 million. And yes, you're right. Like they need so much help in outbound. And that's exactly what I do. So every single one of those like yes responses in me is a micro yes. This is also coincidentally the part in his email that he becomes a lot more clear about why he's emailing me and what he's trying to accomplish. Okay. Back to his email. The challenge they face is that they just simply aren't great copywriters and it's very time intensive. I'd be very keen to see if there's a way I can incorporate you into this process with my customers. And this is the part that I was like, oh yeah, of course. Yeah, that totally makes sense, which is a micro yes. And he's also being very clear about what the problem is and how I can potentially help his clients. And then here's his one goal. How does later this week or early next week look for a chat? So his one goal in this email is to get me on a chat to explore this idea. And I don't do a lot of meetings. I've never really been a big fan of meetings, but this email ended up with me getting on a Zoom call with Jordan to chat through this idea, because he did hit those micro yeses so effectively. And he had one goal working with him. And then eventually the clarity pillar came into play for him. All right, so to round it off, your pitches, your cold emails must be clear. Lack of clarity is the number one cold email killer that I see across the board, always. And it is super hard to be clear. So be clear so that your recipient knows what they're agreeing to and feels comfortable saying yes. Number two, have the micro yeses inside each sentence in your email so that your reader is nodding along with you. And then third, have one goal or one destination that you're driving your cold email reader towards. So it's much easier to be clear, to have those micro yeses, and then to see how to test and to optimize your cold email. All right, so I'm going to hand this off to Paula. She's with Devi, and she's going to talk with you about that AI tool. Cool. I'm going to stop sharing. Paula, take it over.
Hi guys, hi. Thank you so much, Laura, for sharing these very useful tips. In a super like clear way, and with all the images that I was just like loving all the reactions, like Cinderella at the start. That was like very unique way to explain this. There are a few questions on the chat, so I will just let you guys quickly know about Debbie and how you can use what Laura just taught us combined with AI, and then we can jump to your questions because some of them are like very interesting as well. So before you have to send like these cold pitches, you need leads, right? So one way in which you can get leads, which is not such a conventional way, is through social communities. Now, maybe when we need help with something, even if it's like a physical product, like, oh, I'm having a birthday party this weekend and I need a cake. Or for your online business, like I want to improve my website and I need a web designer. So where do we usually go for those recommendations if it's not with people that we know? We go to online communities, right? We go to Facebook groups, we go to Reddit, we go to LinkedIn sometimes, Twitter, I don't know, well, X. Your favorite social media platform is where we usually ask for recommendations. So this is how Debbie. Let me share my screen with you. Share screen. Okay, share screen. So this is how Debbie was basically born, trying to find these leads that need your product. So you can go to thedebbie.com and well, so I will give you an example. Once you have downloaded the extension on Google Chrome, you're going to connect your social media. There is like Facebook groups. It's the only tool that can find you leads on Facebook groups, actually. um, Twitter, LinkedIn. You can actually get the email as well on LinkedIn, so then you can run your campaigns with the three pillars. Reddit, Nextdoor, Threads, WhatsApp groups, Blue Sky, Telegram, and all the internet like Google News and other stuff. So, for example, I added my keywords here: influencer marketing, AI clients, AI financial solutions, blah blah blah, like all of them. One of the tools that we promote is bookkeeping.ai, which automates financial tools. So this is what I'm using Debbie for, to promote bookkeeping AI. So I have my goal very clear, which is that I want people to get to know about bookkeeping. So some of my keywords for that: accounting software, AI accounting, AI financial solutions, and so on. So the scan ran, and Debbie found me. You can see 169 leads, which is a lot. So reading, for instance, I found one which is very high quality. For instance, which bookkeeping software feels the most user friendly for beginners and why. So if you notice, this is perfect for me, right? Because this is exactly the kind of person that I need to learn about bookkeeping AI, because it's a need. So you have a few options. You can save it for later. You can open it directly on Reddit, or you can comment or read the full post. So let's comment. So you can auto write to promote or help. But something that we always encourage people is that the human collaboration with AI is what makes the magic, not just like throwing everything to the tool. So what we like doing in the team is writing like personalized, like from us, you know. So here we can. I'm just gonna type something very quickly, like I highly suggest you check out bookkeeping.ai if you want to learn more. I can share. And then you can connect further. You can connect on the email, you can connect on the DM, you know. So you're going to add the comment, and then there you go, you have shared about your product. So in social media like Reddit, you can get the email because of the nature of, like, you know, it's more an anonymous setup. But on LinkedIn, you can get the email of the person, so then you can run other kinds of campaigns. Besides getting leads this way, the tool can also help you like schedule posts, or you can also check other tools like that we have, like make reels and bookkeeping, for instance. So yeah, this is how you can use AI to get leads and to get the emails only from LinkedIn. So later you run your cold pitch campaign to people that are in the niche and looking for um, your solution. So yes. So if you have any questions about Debbie, you can also put them in the chat. Now, let's go to the questions that you have for Laura. Laura, I can read them to you, and then you can just like answer them. No, that's going to be good. Yes, perfect. So Steven is asking, what happens if we don't have anything in common or to connect with them? I guess when you were saying like there was one email where you said we have these friends in common. No, so that's a good question. What happens if we don't have like this common denominator?
Yeah, and you might not. But you might also. That's one of the reasons I really like LinkedIn, because they'll show you kind of your mutual connections. But maybe you don't have anything, and maybe that's the time when you're actually looking for connection on what kind of cool thing is this person doing, or I did do recently. What kind of thing can you congratulate them on? Or maybe it's even like, one example is maybe they have a podcast and you listen to an episode and it's actually maybe from a year or two ago, but you can't maybe stop thinking about it, or it changed the way you approach something. That's still a connection. That's a connection thread. That's what I call these, where it's you might not have anything in common and you're just reaching out, and that beginning section is actually just a compliment or congratulations. And the cool thing about using that is that research has shown that there's a particular part in your brain that lights up when we get a compliment. And it lights up in the same way that your brain responds if I gave you free money. So if I was like, here you go, Stephen, here's $10, your brain would light up in the same way that if I gave you a compliment. So again, great power, great responsibility. Give genuine compliments, find genuine things to like brag on your email recipients about, because they're going to respond really positively to that compliment. And the other part of it is, if you're emailing, say, an entrepreneur or a small business owner, and they're maybe wearing all the hats, you can even just recognize the fact that they're doing a lot of hard work, and a lot of that hard work is probably going unrecognized. And so you can actually just recognize that, and compliment them on all the cool things that they're doing, because they're not probably taking the time to see that. And that actually is a huge compliment to their personality, their grit, their perseverance, and all of those kind of character traits, if you will.
Yeah, wow, that's great. I love that. That is a very good tip, like the brain part lighting up.
Yeah,
That's
it
super.
is cool, huh?
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense because it's true. I think these are the kind of things that you can see in yourself, know how you react as well. So
Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah.
Thank you. So it is asking, if you have to do cold emailing in scale, how can we personalize the copy? Now that's a good question. What happens if I have 200 leads or so? Like, how can I personalize? Because that could take a lot of time?
Yeah, first of all, I would strongly encourage you not to do cold emailing at scale.
Mm.
The reason is the effectiveness of cold emailing at scale has declined. It's been in a sharp decline over the last like 8-ish years. And I highly recommend nobody do cold emailing in scale anymore because of the costs involved. You have to create and the complexity. So you have to create a whole new domain so you don't like accidentally blacklist your actual domain. You have to like warm up all your emails. Also, a lot of the main email servers like Gmail and Apple are putting preventions against cold emailing at scale. So you're constantly having to like duck and weave and try and figure out how to get around all this. And not to mention, like, to be able to do that, you also have to buy lead lists of like thousands and thousands of people, because the cold emailing at scale, or the spray and pray method, as I like to call it, is essentially you're trying to find that 3 to 5% of the market who's ready to buy right now. In order to find that 3 to 5%, you have to go through 95 to 97% of the market, which is exhausting, to be honest with you, and highly expensive. And it can easily become your full day job, plus your side hustle, plus your weekend job. So
Yeah.
I would strongly recommend more the sniper approach, where you're reaching out one-to-one and you're more handpicking those people that you want to work with. And then you're using the 3 pillars, and you're connecting with those people, and you're talking about, here's your problem and I have the solution. And here's how having this problem is affecting you getting to your goals. I have the solution. Let's talk. And that way you're actually working with the people who want to work with you, and you're kind of avoiding all the heartache and the expenses and all the other nonsense of spray and pray.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. It's just like when we suggest that you write your message to the lead you find on Devi yourself, not just like generic the same for everyone. Like that's not going to work. You're supposed to be helping this person. So yeah, I would entirely agree with you. And also, it makes much more sense to get like small quantity qualified than large quantity. Lord knows what they really want.
Yeah. And
So
to also like add on to that, like usually that spray and pray method only will spit out like 2 to 3 sales calls on the other side. So what if you could get those 2 to 3 sales calls without having to do all that extra work, and you sent like 3 cold emails and you still booked 2 sales calls, which is very possible. Like I do that a lot of
yeah,
times in my own business, where I get the same end result, but it's also higher quality because those are people who actually want to solve their problem in the way that you can help them.
yeah. Another great tip you gave was this one when you're just asking whether they are interested, because I think a lot of times we tend to ask for calls directly or for
Yeah.
some. So it's much better to first like ask, or if there is like maybe something in common. That was a very great tip you gave. So we have Amina is asking, one question is enough per email. Then is it also good to put at the beginning, not end? Because so to wrap up, or can you start maybe with the question? I think that's what she's asking.
Good question. I have done it at the beginning, but only with specific personality types. There's 4 like main personality types. You can think of them as the characters from Friends. And so if you're emailing someone with a red personality, it's based off the DISC personality model, if you're familiar with that. But the red personality is like Monica on Friends, quick decision maker. She knows what she wants. She wants to get it yesterday. Like, why
Yeah.
the wait, right?
Yeah.
So if you're emailing someone like that, you could probably get away with putting the question at the top, or even if you want to experiment, in the subject line, and then a couple lines in the actual email, because by that time the person will have already decided.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was that made a lot of sense with the friends analogy. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So I don't know if someone else has another question. Um I don't think so. Okay. So I put the link so you can get your templates from Laura. I don't know, Laura, if you have another slide to share.
Nope, that's it from me. And if you guys have any other questions, I encourage you to put them in the comments. I think Paula and I have blocked off a couple more minutes for this. So really, if you have questions, like now is the best time to ask them, whether
Yeah.
about cold emails or about Devi or the lead generation that Paula was talking about. Yeah, this is,
I can ask you a question I have.
yeah.
So do you think it is possible to take these three pillars to other platforms that are not emails? And how can one adapt them when the characters are less?
Yes, good question. A colleague of mine used these three pillars to build his consulting business that's well into the 6 figures a year revenue mark. And he used those three pillars on LinkedIn and did really, really well. So I know it's possible. I don't usually use LinkedIn and other platform. I'm kind of an email nerd at heart, so that's why I like email. But I do know that you can use them. You could even use them in, say, video if you wanted. You could use them on other platforms. The important thing is to just follow the pillars because they won't lead you astray. So they're flexible. So you can put more into one pillar or, right? Depending on the
That's a good way.
platform.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
example, I was thinking about taking this approach to influencer marketing. No, when
Yeah.
it's very similar because at some point you discussed about partnerships, no? So I think it would make a lot of where you usually have to message them on Instagram, TikTok. They're not really that. You usually email their agencies on email them. Yeah. So you usually do
Yeah.
Instagram, TikTok. It makes a lot of sense to take it to influencer marketing. Yeah, great. Thank you, Laura. And
Yeah.
Cheryl is asking, will a replay be available? Yes, Cheryl. It's supposed to be recording, so if you're registered, you're going to receive the link automatically. But we are also going to put it on YouTube, so we will be sharing with all of you. Thank you, Cheryl, for your interest. Great. Great. So I think if nobody else has a question, you can also always leave the questions on the YouTube video that we're going to be uploading, and then we can answer on the comments. Or the replay link also has a box where you can answer questions there. Thank you. You're welcome, Cheryl. Thank you for joining us. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Lara, so much. I think all of us learned so much today. We are very, very, very grateful. You have an amazing way of explaining things, and it makes total sense, everything you said. I think we are ready. It's Tuesday and it's early, so we are ready to get to work and put those tips. We're all ready to go from here right into action. I would say we're very inspired right now. At least me, I'm sure everybody is as well.
Thank you so much, everybody. And thank you for the questions and the comments and the chat. And thank you, Paula, for having me here today. I
No,
really appreciate it.
thank you, guys. So see you on the replay, or see you the next time, and have a great weekend. Bye bye.